No, I mean her seat that she's sitting on, not the.
Alright, hi guys, welcome to the semifinals of MIDP 2019. I'd like to congratulate all 4 teams for making it this far. On the question about killing someone, torture, or KPM.
Unlike what Sanjay likes to believe, this isn't a debate about torture. This isn't a debate about killing someone. This is a debate about a revolutionary idea to a prison industry that is falling and failing the society. There are 2 burdens the European government is going to take into this debate. If we can solve those 2 burdens, we take this debate. Firstly, we're going to prove to you that there are marginal benefits to society that this system implements into the criminal justice system that intensifies the ability for it to be beneficial to society. 2, it increases and is justified to do so upon the prisoners and it doesn't violate any forms of human rights that we have as a violent criminal. What am I going to talk about in my speech? Firstly, I'm going to talk to you about the Ludovico technique, violent criminals that we're going to talk about, and I'll go into my parameters going from there. The Ludovico, the technique is one that forces violent criminals to watch videos like of torture, and this is going to be extremely graphic videos that may or may not hurt the individuals mentally. These are videos that are going to cause them, and you're going to be watching this under hallucinating drugs in order to exacerbate the effects of this. The reason that we're going to do so is because it's a very significant deterrent to their innate capability to be able to commit violent crimes within the circumstances. More importantly, a clarification that I got from the earlier, that in all circumstances, these techniques just work, and that is a premise that we get to debate upon this debate. Firstly, now what is violent criminals in this debate? We're talking about extremely violent crimes, i.e. murder, rape, torture, gang violence, extreme forms of attacking or dehumanization upon another human being. But more importantly, we're talking about the systematic and organized version of committing this crime. This means we're talking about first-degree murder, not, for example, the one where you do by accident. Okay? This means that these individuals are individuals who had the mentality, the thought, and they went through the active effort in order to be able to commit that crime and dehumanize and take away the rights of another human being. And these are the people that we'll talk about today. Yeah, sure.
Sir, is it a punishment? Is this issued by court order or could be issued by wardens in prison?
Court order. Only court order. Judges get to decide how long and who is dismissed. The ability and the laws and everything need to be decided all by judges, and the severity of which are also decided by judges. Nothing going to do with the wardens. Now, what is my parameters? Firstly, we're going to talk about this for all violent criminals as stated in motion. Secondly, we're going to talk about and do this when you participate in the jail time, i.e. after your sentencing phase is done, when you're already convicted of the crime, sentencing is done, at the point in which you enter prisons, right before you enter the doorstep, before they put you into the prisons, we're going to make you do these things. If you're a violent criminal, the judge is ordering you to be able to do so. But on top of that, to increase proportionality towards this crime, for all violent criminals, we recognize that in the majority of circumstances, they tend to be individuals with life sentences with no parole. On the majority of circumstances, we recognize that there's no way for these individuals to escape. We recognize from opening government that this is unproportional insofar as if we actively use this technique, we're also willing to significantly lower the rate in which we punish these individuals, i.e. lowering the sentence times, increasing paroles for some individuals. We recognize that these individuals can be rehabilitated within our system. What is the problem in our status quo? We recognize that these individuals are a failing system that the government refuses to acknowledge. We recognize these individuals, regardless whether they're debaters or not, as individuals where the CGS has failed. Meaning to say that these are individuals that can no longer be rehabilitated. That's why they go through death sentence. That's why they go through all these forms of torture that governments implement on them. Why is this principally in line with whatever we do in status quo towards these individuals? Firstly, we significantly lower their movement for the rest of their life. There are a lot of 20, 30-year-old criminals who commit extreme violent crimes. They spend the next 40 to 50 years rotting in jail with no chance to be able to escape. And there is a significant mental torture upon yourself to be rotting in those extreme conditions. More importantly, we have solitary confinement, which is actively secluding you for long periods of time that causes significant mental harm upon individuals who enter solitary confinement in this house. And these are implementations that we do in this status quo. But what is the reason for? On top of that, we also have whipping, right? Which is physical lashes that we complain upon individuals. We add that on top of sentences in order for them to feel physical pain for the harm that we do. All of these things we have in status quo are representative of the same principle that this technique has. I.e., you do a crime, we punish you in order for you to be able to understand the severity of your crime, hoping that these things help your rehabilitation and punishment in order for you to be able to enter society and better individual, but these punishments don't work against individuals of violent crime. The reason why is because A, it doesn't help them to be able to do so because we recognize there is no way for them to escape, i.e. the system doesn't allow them to do so. What harms do they commit them within the system? A, they start prison gangs in the majority of circumstances. They get lower violent crimes to be able to participate within higher violent crimes. Force them to join gangs, release them to, for example, a life imprisonment. They rape prisoners in the Interschool. They actively hurt, shank, stab, whatever you want to call it. And these are all violent crimes that happen within the Interschool that cannot be tried in the majority of circumstances. What do you give a guy who has life parole and a life without parole, for example, right? There's no further punishment other than a death sentence, and in the majority of countries that doesn't exist, and it's more severe compared to what we're talking about right now. So because of this, we recognize that the system in of itself harms these individuals and the people closest to them. In the majority of circumstances, their side dehumanizes them even more. On our side, we give you a comparative benefit. A, we allow these individuals to be able to repent and move forward from their source of crimes. B, we allow individuals to be able to exit prisons by recognizing that they are more than just what they are within prisons. C, we lower the fact that these individuals are more likely to commit recidivism within crimes because of the active effort of nausea, but thirdly, also because Daphne said that we assume that it's going to be absolutely feasible within the circumstance. But 4, we recognize there is less likely to be dehumanizing towards an individual in these circumstances because compared to every other crime, like whipping and, for example, solitary confinement, this is completely in subconscious. Well, I'll take one more.
So is this rehab or punishment?
Both. Everything is rehab and punishment in prisons, okay? Why do you think we put someone within solitary confinement or prisons in general, right? It tends to be a punishment for your crime by us deterring your movement, also rehabilitation for you to be able to understand why you did so. But more importantly, this is a subconscious thought in a majority of circumstances. What does this mean? The reason why we flash images towards you or put you under that nauseating drugs is because it's less likely to leave physical scars on your body. People who are whipped tend to live with the scars on their backs for a very, very long period of time. It's a constant reminder that they have been punished by the state. People who are, for example, put within solitary confinement are scared of being alone or scared of being in close spaces because there is an active imposition upon them. But not only according to the info side, this technique in of itself only applies to you at the point in which you have violent thoughts. That means to say it doesn't devalue your ability to reintegrate to society insofar as you don't have violent thoughts or violent inclinations. But more importantly, not only do we get to reduce the amount of crimes, we allow individuals within these prison systems to become more productive and proactive within being accepted within society. It means you're more likely to change the way and narratives that people think at the point in which A, the citizen skills tend to fall within violent crimes, but B, these people are more integrated within society. Regardless whether we talk about punishment, rehabilitation, retribution, and so on and so forth, we recognize that the status quo has failed. Our side gives these people a second opportunity, and our side keeps society safe.
Alright, thank you very much, Mr. Ludovico.
Yeah.
We tell you that the state's ability to protect its citizens, including these violent criminals, are severely harmed to the point in which you use the Ludovico technique. So what the OG wanted to come up and tell us. So the main crux of their case is telling us about why rehabilitation is actually better on their side, and why even if these people are stuck in prisons, it's better under their side. But our case completely will clash against theirs. But firstly, a rebuttal as to why rehabilitation does work under our side. We tell you that when the point in which these people do rejoin society and they are let out of prison, a stigma is formed. These people are constantly going to be told that they are inherently violent. Why is this an issue? Because we tell you that this creates a narrative that ignores the nuances and the situations of why a lot of people are violent to begin with. We tell you that the characterization that's important under the side of opposition is that violent criminals come on a scale. So in the worst case scenario, fine, we can accept that these people are inherently violent, which is something that we do not think exists in the first place. But for the purpose of debate, we'll still take that burden. But on our best case scenario, why is it so that a lot of people that are violent can be considered moderate? Because we tell you that a lot of people in these circumstances were harmed from the very beginning. They were told that they had to do this in order to survive. What does this look like? We tell you that these people look like people who were born with nothing. People who were born inherently poor into circumstances where they couldn't feed themselves. So why would they resort to violent crimes to do it? Because we tell you inherently, these people recognize that by committing violent acts, by robbing people at gunpoint, by using a knife to get money from these individuals, it's more effective than simply robbing them without using violent means. And that is why these people also commit violent crimes. And we tell you that this is a state's responsibility to not further harm these individuals, because a lot of the reasons why these people are violent in the first place is due to a state's failure to protect these individuals. What do we stand for under the side of opposition? So I'll take you in a bit. So firstly, we tell you that the side that wins this debate has to be the side that can protect our country's citizens better and these criminals. And secondly, which side can prove why it's justified in order to use whether or not it's fine to use the Ludovico technique. And that will be my first substantive for you. Why it's not principally justified in order to use the Ludovico technique. Recognize that the Ludovico technique uses violent images and forces these criminals to watch them while they are under paralysis or under nausea. And this is inhumane. The effects of Ludovico technique means that these people cannot think about violence simply because they are physically banned from doing so. Why is this so inhumane in the first place? We tell you that the comparison here is that these circumstances are similar to people that say things that could potentially harm other people. And why is this justified? Because it's status quo. Simply because you have people that talk about why the state is bad or why other people are lesser of being, it does not mean that you sew up these people's mouths and you prevent them from speaking in the first place. This is a comparison as to why preventing these people from thinking such violent thoughts in the first place is not principally justified. Second substantive, before I get to my second substantive as to why outside is better, sure, I'll take you closing.
Why is it so bad for us to use this technique in order for us to suppress thoughts that could potentially harm other people in the very first place?
Well, we've told you this before. Violent criminals come on a much larger scale than your side would have us believe. It comes from the very worst of individuals who are inherently violent, or those that were coerced into doing this or forced into these circumstances in the first place. In the instance where these people are inherently violent, we tell you that it's the state or the court's responsibility in order to view these individuals in a way that is not inhumane. And what happens as a result of this is that they are forced into prison or put into solitary confinement where they cannot harm other beings. And we tell you that that is so much better than limiting a person's ability to simply think. And in the best case, in our scenario, we protect these modern people who are forced into these circumstances in the first place, because then we tell you rehabilitation is better under our side. So second substantive as to why ours, yes.
So in the majority of circumstances, people who are forced to do crimes aren't actually convicted of violent crimes. You need to say if you're forced to commit murder by a gang, you are not convicted of first degree murder, it goes on to second and third. So insofar as we're talking about first degree, how do we talk about the extremes of that?
It's still this debate focused on how you use the Ludovico technique to deal with all violent criminals. But that's the debate today, recognize. We tell you that their side has to defend a world in which you use this technique for all ends of the spectrum because they are all violent and the crimes that they committed were all violent. Recognize this includes people that were forced to join in gangs simply because they could not provide for themselves, and the gangs told them that by joining their gang and by committing murder and by beating up other people, that they can provide for their family. And this is the state's failure to protect these individuals. Second substantive as to why our side is poor. Why our side is poor. The counter policy that we want to suggest under the side of opposition is we're going to focus on things such as rehabilitation centers, and we'll prove to you why this is actually much more effective under the side of opposition. So why is rehabilitation centers much more better? The policy that we want to suggest is the rehabilitation center, and whether or not these individuals do get the option of rehabilitation centers are decided by the courts, and they're decided by whether or not they're proportional to the circumstances that they were in the first place. No, thank you. So we've told you a lot of times in our debate that these violent individuals come in a scale. So why is it important that moderate individuals have access to rehabilitation centers? Because it's been proven that rehabilitation centers improve a person's ability in order to rehabilitate or reintegrate into society. It's been proven that rehabilitation centers reduce recidivism rates by a lot. And this is important under the side of government, because if they want to, this is important under the side of opposition, because if they want to defend a world in which rehabilitation is the main goal, we tell you that our side does it a lot better. The significance of this is that we've told you how a lot of moderate criminals are forced to commit these crimes simply because it was the failure of the state to not provide enough opportunities for these people to provide themselves. These people have to resort to things like robbing other people at gunpoint, joining gangs to beat other people, simply to provide for their family. And it's abhorrent that we force all individuals like this to a circumstance where they simply cannot think. That is something that our side cannot stand for, because we believe that's extremely inhumane. The comparative under our side is we tell you that we can still improve the lives of a lot of these criminals, and by protecting a lot of citizens by allowing these people to reintegrate into society. And we think that our side as a whole protects these people a lot better because we still do prevent these people from committing violent crimes, the point in which we do not submit to the Ludovico technique. I've never been found to oppose.
I think it's safe to say that the same way how all good ideas start with a thought, the worst ones start with a thought as well. Especially when we're talking about violent criminals. Keep in mind, a lot of the time these violent criminals are calculated, smart individuals who have planned the crimes that they wanted to commit. Very clearly in Roshan's speech from the very beginning, we told you that this particular form of punishment and Ludovico technique will only be used about violent criminals who have had an intent in order to go and commit this violence. I think that it's very, not clumsy, but very convenient for them to come up here and tell me we shouldn't be punishing these individuals because the system has failed them, and because of that simple metric, these individuals should not be punished at all. I don't necessarily think that's fair for them to say this. So a couple of responses. Firstly, as the idea that there'll be a stigma formed upon them once they exit. I think under our side, we tackle this stigma a lot better. Why does this stigma exist? I think the stigma against violence criminals exists because other people are afraid that these individuals will engage in their violent acts again. This is why people don't want to hire ex-convicts or violent criminals. This is why people don't want to hire any criminal, right? Because of the fear that they are exposed to violence, probably in prison or committed violence prior to them entering, and because of that, they will most probably be violent again. Why does the Ludovico technique tackle this assumption? I think because of the inherent effectiveness of the Ludovico technique, the average reasonable individual on the ground would be less afraid of these violent criminals, even if they are still afraid of even communicating with these individuals, because of the understanding that the moment this individual engages in a thought that is highly aggressive, violent, or engages in those acts, will be able to tell immediately. But more importantly, the effectiveness of this technique also ensures that the moment that this individual is also more averse to engaging in these thoughts that could potentially spiral off into turning into other actions. I think this engages with the idea of stigma over there. But secondly, in the idea that the system has failed and we cannot punish them, which is the main crux of their case, I think the mechanism on our side presents only intent. But assuming we also punish other people, I think even if you're in the most dire of situations that the state has put you through, we don't think you should ever resort to violence. Simply because the state, regardless of how effective other methods are, has provided other forms of ways for you to escape the hellhole that you might have been born in. Things like being able to access soup kitchens, things like being able to access welfare opportunities, right? You have literally no reason other than your own personal viewpoint that this may not be enough for you to engage that violence and rob someone else at gunpoint. And we don't necessarily think that that particular reason is something which is justified and is seen goes with the act that they do. I think this also sufficiently tackles the idea that thoughts don't mean action. I think a lot of the times we really have to take a standpoint and realize there's a risk of this thought turning into an action, and especially when we're talking about violent crimes, this risk isn't something that we are willing to forego. But lastly, as for the idea that they wanted to talk about, that's how if they're inherently violent, we'll just lock them up forever, rehab centers are proportional. I don't necessarily think the rehab systems and the centers that they want to build that already exist within the status quo are particularly effective. I'll go into that later. But on the idea as to how, if they're inherently violent, we'll lock them up forever, I think it directly contradicts whatever they wanted to talk about from the very beginning. So assuming their argument about how we should give people second chances because we failed them and the system is something which is terrible, I don't necessarily think it's fair for them to also come here and say we should give them a chance and just lock them up and not punish them. But more importantly, a lot of these violent criminals also engage in violence within prisons themselves, and more often than not, this is also something that we have to take into consideration. So just because this person is inherently violent at some point in time and locking them up is a solution, we don't necessarily think is the best solution for these individuals, especially when we're talking about the characterization that they wanted to provide to us, assuming that characterization was true. And these individuals were pushed to violent crimes because of state failure, I think we should be allowed and able to release them with shorter sentences, like the mechanism that Rocha has provided in his speech, instead of locking them forever in solitary confinement, probably able to engage in these violent thoughts as well. I think outside is safer. On to 3 levels of argumentation. Firstly, as to the safety of other individuals. I think this was sufficiently proven within Roshan's speech. Not only within other people outside of jail due to the high recidivism rates that come with these individuals, simply by their mindset of being able to be calculated and make smart decisions as to how necessarily they can do these crimes. Because keep in mind, people do violent crimes not because they want to be caught, they don't want to, which is why a lot of times they think it through. But secondly, within jails themselves, considering how terrible these conditions are, when we lock individuals up, when they don't want to do the things that we tell them to do, when we force them to lock themselves in solitary confinement, I think it's also very important to note that violent criminals are the overruler when you go into prisons. More often than not, they hurt other prisoners. This includes the small-scale crimes and the innocent individuals who were failed by our system, as they would have said, that didn't shoot other people at gunpoint in order to steal that loaf of bread to feed their kids. These individuals are harmed in prisons as well. So to the extent that we want to protect the other individuals who were failed by the system and committed these other crimes, which was slightly less violent or not violent at all, we think that's also very important to note that these individuals have to be pushed and forced to rehabilitate so they don't harm other people. But thirdly, in terms of the stigma towards violent criminals, I think I've sufficiently proven to you that the stigma is something that we can eliminate the moment we guarantee to society that we have a rehabilitation technique that works on all platforms.
Okay,
Secondly, on the question of proportionality, before that, sure.
How does government think that using the Ludovico technique, especially for the people in prison, is proportional to the harm that they will cause?
Okay, thanks. Here's my argument. So proportionality. The fact that they've taken away the rights of another individual, because more often than not, violent criminals are individuals who have engaged in violent physical alteration with someone else, probably permanently scarring the other individual. Whether it's mass murder, whether it's rape, whether it's murder of one individual, taking away a father from an innocent child because of hate crime, I think it's very important to note that they have taken away the well-being and the life of another individual for the selfish need in order to commit violence. And I think by that logic, us taking their ability to think about violent thoughts away doesn't necessarily fit in this criteria when you're talking about the mass amount of harm they've caused upon other people and are potentially able to do so. Does this mean all violent criminals cannot rehabilitate? We don't think so. But we think the present rehabilitation system fails because it relies on these individuals to want to rehabilitate in order for them to be able to do so. We tell them, what do you think about your crime? Do you think you did something wrong? Do you think that you will do it ever again? Maybe you shouldn't. Maybe you took away the life of a child. But if that criminal, that violent criminal, doesn't want to agree with your rehabilitation techniques within the status quo, they won't work upon these individuals, and that's where recidivism happens, which is more often than not the case. With the Ludovico technique, it's a permanent solution. This is something that we force upon you. You have no right to say that you do not want to rehabilitate. You have no right to decide upon your own metrics as to whether you have committed a violent crime or not. And this forces this upon you. But more importantly, as an individual who was able to rehabilitate earlier, I think it is impossible if you have rehabilitated for you to think those aggressive thoughts and have to succumb to this outcome for the rest of your life. This means the Ludovico technique specifically targets individuals who would have receded if they had not engaged within this particular system. I think these are people we have to talk about. Extremely proud.
All right. Thank you, different.
A world in which you dehumanize these people, a world in which you make them suffer more than they already are, is a world in which we cannot protect. It's a world in which we frown upon. So today, I'm going to start my speech with a few rebuttals coming from side government. So first of all, you came and said that we need to protect the safety of the people. There's going to be gang leaders, the violent crimes, people that commit violent crimes are already leaders in these jails and people like that. things like that. So we tell you that there are already check and balances in place in these prisons. There's already things like high number of wardens. These people are put under more confinement than others. So we tell you that there's already check and balances. So you need to defend a world in which the harms of you conducting this Ludovico technique is disproportional to conducting the harms of conducting the Ludovico technique is disproportional to what happens. So moving on, next rebuttal. So we tell you that instead so they come and say that the status quo is the same principle. You whip them, you put them to rehab. It's the same thing as us just putting them through this harmful technique. So we tell you that on your side it's much more harmful because you do not let people think of their own thoughts. You strip them of their right to think of whatever they want to. So we've already made it clear to you that on our side of the world, no thank you. We defend. We tell you that currently in status quo, you have people that have thoughts against the state. You have people that have different thoughts, but we still defend these people. We still let these people do it as such. So we don't let it. We don't strip them of freedom of thought. So we tell you something that's principally abhorrent on your side and something that you fail to defend throughout this debate. So we tell you that when you make them not able to think their own thoughts, is when it's when the state becomes seen as dictatorial. When you dictate their own thoughts, when you do things like that, which I'll get to in my later on this. So you come and no thank you. You come and tell us that there's physical scars left on the person. We tell you that these scars are actually not as sure we get into the fact that they're scars. You were there for a long time. But we tell you that this reminder is effective in telling you that you should not commit these crimes in the future, and it's much less morally abhorrent than you inhibiting their thoughts. So no thank you. So what's the main harm of actually having this thought? I'll get to in my speech. So moving on, we tell you that what's actually the main idea that we brought up and which you haven't contended with. The idea of rehab actually working and the benefits of rehab. So we tell you that rehab is actually more beneficial because it lets people go back to society. It removes the stigma onto them. So what is the effects of this? I'll get to later. So no thank you. We made our stance clear from the start. We believe that Ludovico technique is inhumane under all circumstances, and there should not be any implication of it, and we should resort to rehab and things like that. Always. So what's our counter policy? We support rehabs and other alternatives, and we focus on curing individuals rather than punishing them more than they already are. So what's the burden that we've been trying to prove to you this whole time? Sure.
In the majority of circumstances, from my speech, I told you violent criminals cannot be rehabilitated because you put them in life sentences without parole or in life sentences with parole for long periods of time. How are you going to rehabilitate someone that doesn't come into society in your world?
Correct. So we tell you that. So what I was about to tell you was that these people that commit violence comes on the scale. People that commit crimes, serial killers, these absolute psychopaths, and these people that do it due to the failure of the state, which my leader of opposition has told you, which was left uncontained. I'll get to this in a bit. So first of all, my goal is to prove to you that why status quo works and why your technique is actually harmful in essence. So let's talk about who these violent criminals are, as my leader has already told you, and which you haven't actually characterized properly. So what we told you is that these criminals are people that there is people that are forced to commit their crimes because of the failure of the state. People that have been forsaken by their birth, where they're born into, people families they're born into, things like that. So and then there's the psychopaths, people that are generally insane in essence. So what we want to tell you is that there are alternatives to fixing these people in which we can result to, which I'll tell you. So why is it not justified? So we tell you that your method is one in which you put people through these violent experiences. You remind them of all the acts they've done. What is the effect of this? You don't allow people to think properly. You don't let them have the freedom of their thought. So why is this abhorrent? We tell you that all individuals, it's in the state's best interest to support all these individuals, regardless of their thoughts and all. So we tell you that everyone has his freedom to thought, regardless of the acts we committed in the past. Before that's sure.
If your justification is that the state has failed them and therefore we are unjust in punishing them, why send individuals to prison at all?
Repeat again.
If your justification is that people commit crimes because the state has failed them, why send them to prison and punish them at all?
What do you mean? Okay, so we tell you that these people need to go to prison in order for them to have the chance to rehab and have the chance to be punished for their crimes in the first place. But we tell you that the side in which you want to impose to us is have them go through this painful process, have them inhibit their thoughts. We tell you that on our side, sure they go through punishment. Both sides have this punishment. It's not something that's mutually exclusive on our side, on your side. We tell you both sides have punishment, but on your side, the punishment is way more severe on our side. So we tell you next over, why is our counter work, which is left uncontended by your side. So we tell you our counter works because we consider rehab for those people that are moderate, most these people that are actually savable, these people that commit people that commit crimes because they're forced to, because of their birth, where they've been born into. So but for those that actually violate, we let them we let the course decide what's up to what happens to them. We let them go through solitary confinement, things like that. So what's the effect of it? So how's this stand in the argument? So we tell you that on the outside, in which you put these people through solitary confinement, things like that, is a site in which these people around them won't be harmed. They won't be allowed back to society and things. And this is beneficial because as your side wants to push onto us, you tell us that on the outside, civilians will be harmed, everyone will be damaged. But we tell on the outside that civilians won't be harmed because these inherently psycho people will not be let back into society. So moving on, we also tell you that rehab has been proven to be effective. It's something that's been tried in the past. But your Ludovico technique is something that's not exactly been tried before. It's not something that's been commonly practiced. We tell you rehab has been done for years and years, but your Ludovico technique has not been proven to work. So we tell you that outside the probability of these people, or the probability of these people actually committing violent crimes and the probability of us actually solving the problem is much higher outside than on your side because the technique hasn't been proven to work because of the fact that it has not been tried before. So what have we told you so far? We told you that we told you the significance of our rehab, and we've told you the effects of our rehab and why it's so important in Interschool. We've also told you why this Ludovico technique is so harmful in which you inhibit people's thoughts, and we don't want the state to be seen as dictatorial. So, to end off, I'd like to say what is the significance of our using the Ludovico technique? What's the significance of our case? So we tell you that on our side, we allow a world in which for these individuals to get back into society, get back into society without the harms of them, the stigma that lies on them, and the fact in which they are not seen as unsavable on your side. When you impose a Ludovico technique on them, you're essentially telling people these people are unsavable. You have to result something as harm as immoral as inhibiting their thoughts in order to save them. With that, I couldn't be prouder to oppose.
Alright, I think we get the opposition member of government. Yeah.
We think it's an utter shame that they are willing to allow a world full of individuals with violent thoughts to continue this way, considering the justice system and the whole rehabilitation system itself has failed us so much throughout the years, right? We think this extra measure of this technique is something that we are entitled to make, considering the harm and the magnitude of how much third-party harm has been caused by individuals who do violent crimes, right? So before I move into my extensions, couple of rebuttals. Firstly, about the whole thing, they brought up, you have a higher employment of wardens or whatever in the prison, and therefore this tackles the issue of violence in prison. We tell you that the Ludovico technique in the very first place suppresses thoughts that will make you be violent in the first place, right? We tell you when that happens, the likelihood of gang fights or gangs to even be formed and for violence to happen within prison itself is not something that will happen. This means the prison system itself is not one that is violent. The prison system is something that has a scene. The prison system is something that will allow people to actually properly get rehabilitation and not get kicked and thrown around by wardens because you are being violent, right? Secondly, on the idea of proper rehabilitation, we think people cannot, especially violent criminals, cannot get proper rehabilitation if you are not being associated with society, if you cannot integrate back into society. That is something you don't provide under your side because people still have these violent thoughts. The general society and the general public is just very afraid of these kind of people. So for these people to be able to integrate back into society is something that's going to be very hard because of the fear people have of them. Secondly, the regular rehabilitation system itself is not effective in itself because the fact that people can relapse in the very first place, right? We tell you that the regular rehabilitation system is very weak, and we tell you that by enforcing this technique is something that can help with the rehabilitation system. I'll take one later. Thirdly, this is about the idea of freedom of thought, and we think this is something that like OGD contests with coming to in response to them, right? Talking about the idea of freedom. we tell you that the freedom itself was something that was innately given to you by the state. Another responsibility of the state, other than ensuring your freedom, is also ensuring the protection of citizens on the ground. This means if you are causing third-party harm and you are going to continue to do so because of your thoughts, I think the state has the innate right in order to impose this technique on you so that you can have suppressed thoughts. So the state carrying out its proper responsibility to protect the rest of the general society, right? This technique does not make you stupid so you cannot think or whatever, right? This technique just literally suppresses your thoughts of violence. It makes you feel nauseous or whatever every time you have these thoughts. Before that, any of you?
Miss, in cases where a court is able to find a person who hasn't committed crime yet, but hasn't committed a crime according to their standard, but has committed a pattern of violence. In your principle, do you support them going through the same Ludovico thing?
Can you repeat that?
For a person that hasn't committed murder, or for a person that doesn't fit their standard, but in court, it is found that they have a pattern of violence, do you support giving them this Ludovico technique?
No, we tell you that the idea of this whole violence and whatnot, right? We tell you it comes at the expense of what was already characterized from the very get-go. Rape, things that innately cause ultimate horrible damage to other people, right? We tell you that the court isn't just going to look at something and go like, oh, this is really, really bad, right? We tell you that the magnitude of it is analyzed before you even put someone through the technique in the very first place. So, on to my extensions. Firstly, the fear of trauma and why this is a good thing. Have a seat. So we tell you, how does trauma happen? Why does it work? We tell you when you go through this technique, every time violent thoughts arise in your head, this means that you are going to go through and you're going to relive the experiences that happened back when you were going through the technique. Right? We tell you this is extremely painful. We tell you that every time you feel nauseous or you think back to the time when you were watching whatever that was happening on that screen, those graphic images, it's going to come back in your mind every time. We tell you that is something that is very traumatizing to individuals. This means that individuals are constantly thinking of it and they're reliving the pain that they went through, right? This means, have a seat later, this means that individuals are able to go through an experience that suppresses them, and not only that, but it trickles down to other people as well, from even committing crimes in the very first place, right? The fear of going through that experience itself is something we think that is good, because in the very first place, the fear of, basically, so when you get scared, you don't want to go through it, the likelihood of you to opt into that lifestyle is lesser in the very first place, right? We tell you that individuals won't be able to opt into that just because of the fact that they are scared to do so, right? This technique imposes a sort of trauma that is that the magnitude of it is large. And to individuals who have already committed it, every time they want to commit these crimes, it's not something that's going to happen. Before that, yeah, sure.
If the characterization in this debate is that there are people who are inherently forced into a life of violence, how can you defend that these people that it's justified?
Look, it was already said before, if you are being forced into a life of violence, this means someone is probably coercing you to doing so. It's not first degree, right? We tell you when it's not first degree or whatever, that means that you are not subject to this kind of the technique in the very first place. We tell you first degree means that you are doing it on your own. You as an individual is someone who is very violent. Secondly, let's talk about the justice system as a whole. Yeah, so the justice system is something we tell you. I mean, it's pretty evident. It's failed us multiple times. The justice system is pretty shit if you want to talk about it, right? We tell you that the justice system literally just puts someone into prison and claims that this person is like, he's going to get better. You are sentenced to a lifetime in prison. But we tell you, as an individual, you don't get to change. You don't get to change the way you think, and people are going to continue having stigmas that are horrible on you as someone who is trying to integrate back into society, someone who's trying to get back into, trying to go through rehabilitation. The process in itself is so difficult, we tell you, and it happens within status quo. So considering that is the process people are going through, this technique is an extra measure to make sure that those thoughts are suppressed, that these thoughts can stop someone from being the way they are. This means it betters the justice system, it betters the whole rehabilitation process as a whole, apart from being like in prison and things like that. So it doesn't like shorten your sentence or whatever, right? It just means that as an individual, you are able to become better as a person and that you are able to integrate back into society. Right? So ultimately, we tell you as the state, we want to protect people, right? We tell you as a state that wants to protect people, we are allowed to take this measure in order to stop people from thinking the way they do, and so that we can protect the mass majority, and also at the same time help criminals with their rehabilitation better. That will be proud to propose.
So I feel like side closing opposition was also extremely inconsistent. So the first thing they say is that they're not okay with permanent mental damage that happens to the people on the outside. But in the same breath, they also told you that they're okay with solitary confinement, a procedure that extremely it secludes these kinds of individuals and it makes them permanently damaged, because they're always trapped inside this box without any human interaction, without any form of discussion with anybody else. So they have to argue now why it's suddenly okay for the permanent damage to happen inside those circumstances and why it's not okay on the outside. I'll talk to you further about that later. But secondly, they argue that the culture of fear is not mutually exclusive. But also, they said that jails in itself are bad. That means we don't understand where their fear of culture actually comes from. We tell you that on the outside, the fear of culture comes from the fear of having to go through these procedures when you do certain crimes, when you are convicted of first-degree murder. This means that the culture of fear that happens on the outside is not wanting to always have to see like these dangerous or like these graphic videos, or having to go through this this technique, right? Because it's so dangerous and it's so harmful. I'll talk to you about that later. But three issues that we need to talk about inside this debate. Firstly, is it the state's responsibility? Secondly, the freedom of thought and is it important? And thirdly, the culture of fear. Firstly, the state's responsibility. So this is a question that we want to prop back to opening up. So how responsible is the government or is the state in the first place? Sure, it's debatable to say that it's the state's fault because they were put into circumstances that they were like born into crime or they were born into gang association. But was it the state's fault that they were born like very violent, or because they find joy in actually doing violent crimes? I don't think so. But even if that is true, there has to be a way that the state has to repent, right? There has to be a way that the states have to overcome or solve this issue that this was their fault. But secondly, is rehab effective? I think this is where the state's responsibility goes into place. Because it's the state's responsibility to ensure rehab, to ensure people change, this is where we side closing government take the debate, right? Because we concede that it's the state's responsibility to rehabilitate people. And we also concede that the jails in status quo that are meant to rehabilitate all these kinds of criminals aren't necessarily good. But it doesn't have to be, right? It can be better. And it can be better by reducing the amounts of rape things that happen inside these kinds of jails. It can be better by having less gang fights inside these kinds of prisons. Because these kinds of things exist, the rehabilitation that jail wants to try to provide inside status quo doesn't work. Because people are afraid of jail. Because jail is just the same as outside in the ghettos, right? Because you can always just do the same things. Because you're just conditioned to you're sure you're conditioned inside a jail cell, but that doesn't mean you can't do certain things like you did outside of the ghetto. You can still remain very violent. You can still pick on inmates that are weaker than you. You can still make jail worse for people who want to seek rehabilitation in the first place. So the problem on the their side is that jail becomes worse, but it doesn't become a rehabilitation platform for firstly violent individuals, but also individuals that actually need the rehabilitation to begin with. Secondly, how is it the state's responsibility? How do we repent for all this? Like, if we agree or we concede that it was the state's responsibility that people were born into crime. Firstly, we'll say that we have to provide them better alternatives, or like we give them because this technique exists in the first place, it means that it's easier for individuals to integrate back into society. But notice that they say the stigma still exists. But we don't understand why the stigma still exists, because I don't see why that's mutually exclusive, but I'll still tackle it under this debate. Firstly, we'll say that because you are unable to think very violent things, it also means that you are incapable of carrying. So even if people are you, it's much likely that nothing will happen to you. So there's still a sense of security that people have because they know that even if they are surrounded by a group of violent people, they will still they have a sense of security that nothing will happen to them. This means the integration happens much more under our side. Because you are convicted, because people know that you are a violent criminal that went through this technique, it means that it's much more safer to employ you, it's much more safer to give you like certain things, right? And yeah, those kind of things. Before that, sure.
If joining a job like being a policeman requires you to think of violent things, but does not necessarily require you to commit violent acts, what is the justification of violent thoughts leading to violent acts?
When did we say that you need to be violent to become a police officer to begin with, right? I think that's something that's very I mean like police brutality is probably because policemen are violent in the first place, right? And they're probably very racist, but like I don't know what Thai government tries to Thai opposition wants to tell you, but sure, if under those circumstances are true, then you just can't apply for it because you can't be violent, right? Secondly, the idea of freedom of thought. Is it dictatorial? Is it dictatorial? No, because we tell you that all states, regardless of whether you are dictatorial or not, have the ability to take certain rights from you because you impose your ideals or you try to harm other people. And I think Priyanka has told you a lot about that in her speech, so that we don't get this idea of freedom of thought. But here's where CG takes the debate, right? Because our justification is to prove this. CG takes the debate. So our justification is to say that in order to provide justice towards people, it's not that our justice or our reasoning in order to implement this technique is because its justice has to be served towards this individual. It's the punishment they deserve as people who are inherently violent, as people who don't think otherwise or find pleasure in violent acts. If you want a world that's I don't know, less harmful or less violent, jails are more rehabilitative, jails are more effective. Go beside closing government. Chair and panel, I'm going to start off this debate by being very we can see that there will be no recidivism. Confirm. We can't contend to have the same results or the same rate as that of government. But in any debate about punishment in prison, it is never relying on consequential morality or what the result might be. Because if we follow their justification, then they are in line policing criminals before they commit crime. And it sounds very familiar to certain states, certain parties who do this. And it is very dubious because it impedes on humans' dignity and also their rights. So let's move on to just a few problems coming from opening and closing. OG's case assumed that side of opposition or side of closing opposition supports status quo. Like justifications were drawn using a filter that is whipping is bad, so whipping is bad. But they never explain why this is a dignified punishment to begin with. And also, their mechanism was also dubious. They said firstly it's court order, but then they try to set up standards for it. It's only for first degree murder, only for rape, only for people, and we do allow it for people in prison for life. But if you want to say that it's for court order, just allow court lah. Don't try to make up standards for yourself. But I'm going to tell you why the standards that you gave us is also harmful for your case in just a second. The closing of government. Jail isn't scary. So what I heard, or what I understand, is that coming from side of opening government, they still want jail. Jail is inefficient, but they want some part of it. So, and then we replace a big chunk of the year using this Ludovico thingy. And then for side of opposing government, they concede that jail is very bad, and then we remove jail out of the equation. I don't understand. Is it an addition with the punishment, or do you want to change the entire justice system to begin with? Because this is worse. Because if you suggest that you don't want jail, this means that you deny the closure coming from the victims. There's a reason why jail or prisons are like literally four walls, secluded and located in places where a law of society cannot touch them. It's because we don't want these people going on the streets and people seeing them, because people will be traumatized. The victims would realize that these are the people who hasn't gotten punishment, and the most visceral way to notice that they have gotten the punishment and for them to gain the solace and also gain closure is by knowing that they're being put away for a long time. So let's move on to the first issue, justification. Opposition says two things. Firstly, government says two things. Firstly, there are systematic problems in prisons. Why is it systematic, firstly, and why can't we solve them? It was never answered, but they just assume that it's just part of the culture, but never want to answer that question to begin with. But secondly, their whole morality was based on consequential morality. I'm going to explain why this is bad. Firstly, it's irreversible. So the reason why we hate murderers and why it's so bad is because the life that you are taking, the philosophical side of the explanation, is because it's irreversible. You aren't able to gain that same life back. And the same reason for this is because we expect it's a court order, so that if they want to go to a clinic or they want to go to hospital in the future, and it is proven that they have no violent behavior, they cannot change it, given it's irreversible. And this is why it's because it's overkill. So I think the analysis coming from my member was, to their side, disingenuous. Because we need to concede that to some extent, that human beings adhere to a certain degree of violence to begin with. And me being very uncertain about Ludovico's treatment, I think violence and the interpretation of it is very subjective. In my understanding, I think it's based on the interpretation of what violence is for a certain criminal. Does this, so I question, when they look at blood, they're going to be nauseous? When they have a thought of playing a video game, will they be nauseous? So the conclusion coming from here is that I think the way we structure society, our media and our culture, there is a certain degree of violence in it. And like a lot of human beings also experience, like there isn't one, you cannot like say that when you're queuing up for food and someone like cuts in front of your line, like you must have said to yourself, you must smack this lady because it's my order and I want my burger fast. So this just proves that it is counted as violence. But the reason we don't punish it is because people don't act on that violence. So the justification coming from their side is very pernicious, because you limit choices for people to go into certain occupations, certain hobbies, and they aren't able to self-actualize themselves or aren't able to really rehabilitate. So what I mean by rehabilitation is forgetting the past, not doing it anymore, forgetting about violence. What they do is that they may have stopped recidivism, but what happens is that violence will always be part of their life, because they will be constantly reminded every time they vomit when they are nauseous. You don't help people, you force them into a corner. That is why policing is bad. No, sit down.
Rehabilitation, as I said in my speech, only works in a time where individuals are open to receiving it, and it clearly hasn't been working right now. And just locking these individuals that you consider as well, then what are you really doing?
I'm going to go into my last issue, but this way. So second issue, will there be any changes in prison? No, that is court order, right? So according to OG, a lot of people are susceptible towards gang fights, towards rape. They want to only change that the only stakeholder was violent people participating. We reject this premise. Why? Because people, violent or not, are bound to succumb to gangs because they need to survive. They need protection. They want to avoid getting raped. There will be people who haven't gotten through the Ludovico treatment who can still operate gang fights and also gang rapes. Most of these violent behaviors develop within prison. So the conclusion to this is that number one, their benefits doesn't exist. A guy in lifetime of prison can still be raped nonetheless. But secondly, if they want to force them to undergo this treatment, this begs the question that the standard for the Ludovico treatment is very dubious and is pretty low. Then, do we have people outside of prison only say we remove stigma, everyone will know. But firstly, not everyone gets the technique. So the public still don't have the certainty that every single prisoner will go through the treatment. But secondly, I think it's worse because at the point in which you do experience violent tendencies, you will gnaw shit in front of them, you will vomit in front of them. That's a more visceral sign that you were part of the treatment and that you have violent tendencies to begin with. More reason why people would dismiss the stigma to begin with. So in the end of the day, what sort of government is trying to protect is a world of perpetuating violence, because if it's not the prisoners, it is the government, and that is something we would never support.
Right, thank you for the speech from logic and
Sanji, or Daphne, is it lunch now?
Yeah.
It's lunch.
Should you take your back?
Yeah.